They still talk about her in the village. Whispered warnings carried on the wind, told by grandmothers to restless children, by fishermen to strangers who wander too close to the water. Long ago, there was a wedding that never happened. The story goes that a young bride, dressed in white, was left waiting at the altar. Some say her groom fled in shame. Others claim he was found dead, his body floating face down in the river. But what no one disputes is what happened to the bride herself. On that night, in her gown and veil, she walked to the riverbank. Villagers heard her crying, a sound so raw it cut through the night air. By morning, her body was gone. Some say she slipped, others say she threw herself into the water, but the river never gave her back. Since then, men who linger by the river after dark have gone missing. Their boats drift downstream empty. Their boots are found in the mud. Sometimes, if the fog is thick enough, people claim to see her, a pale figure in white standing in the shallows, veil trailing in the water like seaweed. They call her the bride in the river. And the old ones swear her spirit still waits, searching for a groom who will never come, dragging every man she finds beneath the current to join her.
When Daniel first arrived in the village, he thought the legend was nothing more than a ghost story, something to entertain tourists and keep children from wandering near the water at night. But the people here didn't laugh when they spoke of her. At the small inn where he stayed, the old innkeeper leaned in close after hearing he wanted to go fishing at dusk. His voice was rough, urgent. Don't go near the river after sunset, especially not alone. Daniel smirked politely, brushing it off. But the man's eyes were serious, almost fearful. Later that evening, over a plate of stew, a farmer sitting nearby overheard their talk and added his own warning. "Men vanish here," he said, lowering his voice. "One by one, pulled beneath. My own brother went missing 2 summers ago. They never found him. Only his hat, drifting downstream." Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "You really believe in this bride?" The farmer only nodded. "Believe? I've heard her. She cries when the fog rolls in. A sound you don't forget. If you hear her song, you're already marked." That night, as Daniel lay in his small rented room, he heard the faint rush of the river through the window, and beneath it, though it could have been the wind, he thought he caught the soft, broken sob of a woman crying. The next evening, Daniel ignored the warnings. The air was heavy with mist as he walked toward the riverbank, fishing rod slung over his shoulder. He told himself it was just a story, just superstition. But every step closer, the silence thickened, as though the night itself was holding its breath. The river lay before him, black and glassy, its surface broken only by the slow drift of fog. He cast his line, watching the ripples fade. Then he saw her. At first, he thought it was a trick of the mist, just a shape forming where the water met the trees. But as the fog shifted, she became clear. A woman. She stood knee-deep in the river, her gown clanging to her body like wet silk. A veil draped over her face, long and torn, trailing in the current. Her head tilted downward, and her shoulders shook with quiet sobs. Daniel froze. Every warning, every hushed story rushed back to him. He should have turned and run, but his feet wouldn't move. The woman lifted her head slowly. Though her face was hidden by the mist, he felt her eyes lock onto his. Cold,
unblinking, endless. The river rippled around her as she whispered his name.
Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He hadn't told anyone his name since arriving in the village, and yet she knew it. The figure in the river swayed gently, as if to music only she could hear. Then, through the mist, a sound drifted to him, a song. It was soft, mournful, almost a lullaby. Her voice trembled, carrying across the water, each note heavy with sorrow. But beneath the sadness was something else, something that tugged at him, pulling him closer to the riverbank. His legs moved on their own, one step, then another. The fog pressed against his skin, damp and cold, but the song warmed him, wrapping around his thoughts like a spell. Come closer. Don't leave me alone. Daniel blinked, fighting to think clearly, but the melody grew stronger, sweeter, more demanding. He could almost see her face beneath the veil now. Pale skin, lips parted in song, eyes dark and endless like the river itself. The ground beneath him turned soft, muddy. Water seeped into his shoes as he realized he was already standing in the shallows. Her song broke into a soft laugh. It was beautiful and wrong. The river pulled at his legs, the current grew stronger, and still she sang. Daniel snapped out of the trance just long enough to stumble backward. The mud sucked at his shoes, dragging him down as the water swirled higher around his legs. "Stop!" he shouted, though his voice sounded small against the rushing current and her song. The bride tilted her head, veil dripping with black river water. Her arms rose slowly, gracefully, as if inviting him into an embrace. The river obeyed her. The current surged, pulling him forward with sudden force. Daniel clawed at the mud, at the reeds, at anything, but his body was yanked toward her. Cold water filled his shoes, his clothes, his chest. His screams drowned in the roar of the river. For one horrifying moment, he broke the surface, gasping for air. Through the veil, he saw her face, skin gray, lips blue, eyes hollow and endless. And then she smiled. Her hands closed around his wrists, icy and unyielding. She pulled him down into the blackness. The last thing Daniel heard before the water closed over his head was her lullaby, turning into a wedding hymn. By morning, Daniel's room at the inn was empty, his bed unslept in, his belongings untouched. The innkeeper muttered a prayer under his breath and closed the shutters tight. Down by the river, villagers gathered at the muddy bank. Daniel's fishing rod lay half submerged, lines snapped. His boots sat in the shallows, one turned on its side, filling slowly with dark water. But there was no sign of him. The fog hung heavy that day, thicker than usual. Some swore they saw a figure standing in the water, veil trailing like seaweed, humming softly to herself. The farmer who had warned him shook his head. "Another groom," he whispered, "another taken." By nightfall, the whispers spread through the village. The bride had chosen again. And so the legend lived on. The river still waited, and somewhere, beneath the black current, Daniel's body drifted in eternal silence, another soul bound to the bride's endless search for love. The water rippled, the song began again, and the cycle continued.